All right. Hello and welcome to our Analytics Breakthrough webinar series. This is Faris Al-Halou with Enor, principal consultant and co-founder, and also co-author of the book with my colleague Eric Fettman, who could not make it today, but he sent his best wishes to us, and he's did a lot of work for the book and worked closely with Duff actually on the section of the book about enhancing Google Analytics with visitor surveys. So I do want to take this opportunity to welcome our guest speaker, Duff Anderson. He's a good friend of Enor. He's one of the, I would say, early founders of this industry, visionary in voice of the customer research type work. Co-founded the iPerceptions company, leading. You probably know this already. If you do any of voice of customer work, you've heard of iPerceptions, the leading digital customer research company. iPerceptions work with over 1,200 brands across 80 countries, and I want to give this opportunity for Duff to say hi to everyone here. Hi, Duff.
Yeah, hi, Faris, and I'm excited today to discuss the value of leveraging VOC within Google Analytics. Should be an interesting and engaging session.
Thank you. And just a couple of logistical items here. For those of us on the webinar, we will have this webinar recorded, will be posted on the Enor blog, and will be made available to those who registered and potentially could not attend. And we'll also have a chance for you to ask questions. So you can type your questions in the questions box, and then we will ask those to Duff at the end of his presentation. With that, let me go ahead and move this over to Duff. Just give me 1 second. And sorry about, I had a bit of an audio glitch earlier. So should be all set now. Go ahead, Duff.
All right, I'm just going to try and share my screen here.
And we can see it very well, yeah?
Yeah, all right. Let's see what I got here. I'm going to go into presentation mode. Do you see Google Analytics Breakthrough now on the screen?
Yes.
All right. So I wanted to start off, Faris, with just discussing what is voice of customer, a little bit of its history, and why it's so invaluable in terms of getting more value out of your behavioral web analytics, in today's session, particularly Google Analytics. And I think one of the first things to understand is that when it comes to voice of customer, the way you engage for feedback completely changes the nature of information you get back. So what I mean by that is the way that you ask for questions and the way that you set your sampling strategies completely affects the nature of the information you get back. So one of the most important things in VOC is understanding how different sampling strategies affect the type of information you get back. Are you trying to get representative, reproducible results? Or are you trying to pick up the exceptional customer complaint? Or are you just trying to get tactical information on a new area of the site? And one of the very first things that you need to understand is that a proper VOC solution needs to have a full, what I call, engagement spectrum. And that's part of what we covered intensively in the book. I think it's on page 552 in Appendix A when we get into qualitative feedback. And one of the main things that we review there are the different types of engagement strategies that you would take based on the objectives of your analysis. Now, the other things that become important, Faris, in VOC are research frameworks. You know, nowadays, it seems with, self-serve survey tools, anybody can write a questionnaire, and everybody in the company sort of has an opinion based on what their customers say to lobby for their own agendas. So proven structured research frameworks that, in iPerceptions' case, have been developed over 17 years working with marketing professionals that we know will collect the type of information you're looking for is a key element when you're setting up a VOC program. So do you have structured research programs? We'll talk in a bit about the 4-2 framework that we did with Avinash Kashyap, but you also may want to have research frameworks around marketing effectiveness, customer loyalty, conversion optimization, which can be quite different than if your job is to, run an ongoing tracking study. So, expertise and objectivity around VOC is quite essential as well when you're looking at selecting a VOC vendor.
Absolutely, and Duff, just to echo what you just stated, we're in the consulting business and we work with clients, and a lot of times people just sort of grab the technology, they go and search online and they pick a survey tool, and let's just run a survey, ask a few questions, and then let's see what we hear or what customers are asking about. There's just no structure, there's no framework. So I really appreciate your, what you just stated about, looking at this for a specific business objective as opposed to sort of just let's put some survey out there and get some feedback, sort of in a random way.
Yeah, Ferris, I couldn't agree more. And we cover that quite well in the book. We also have, the key metrics for someone starting off, whether it's how to ask for visitor intent, task completion, primary purpose of visit, purchase horizon. So those areas are covered quite nicely in the appendix in the book, starting on page 552. What I thought I would do today would be discuss a little bit my experience with integrating with Google Analytics, which actually started back in 2008 with somebody that most GA practitioners know, Avinash Kaushik, who was their chief evangelist at the time. He had put out in his book, Web Analytics, an hour a day, the idea that context was king, and that he believed that no matter how hard you tortured Web Analytics data, it had a very hard time telling you why something happened. And in bringing that challenge to Web Analytics, which was, a new practicing area at the time, he wrote another blog about the best 3 survey questions ever. And he said, in terms of Web Analytics, that would be, why are you here? Were you able to complete the purpose of your visit? And if not, why? Now, we teamed together with Avinash and we brought the first fully automated integrated product for GA called 4Q. We added the question satisfaction. The reason being, if someone can do something, that's good, but also you want to know whether or not it aligned to their expectations. Was it difficult? Was it easy? And that is how we actually brought the very first voice of customer integrations to Web Analytics, and that was back in 2008.
I remember that.
So, I think, context is king. The idea of why you do this was stated so well by Avinash. I don't think I can say it any better. Maybe what would be interesting for the listeners today is say, okay, I buy in to the concept, but how do I do this? And so I can only share today how iPerceptions does it, but I believe that it would be similar to other people doing similar approaches. So I thought in the next few slides we would talk about, how do I accomplish this within GA? And then we can talk about the challenges of today and how it's moving from simple, better behavioral reporting into remarketing and identifying audiences. So that was going to be my plan, Garth.
Yeah, thank you, Duff, and right on. A lot of practitioners, they have GA data, they look at it, and potentially they might have most of VOC data sort of separated, not correlated. So I think our listeners here would benefit greatly from your next points about integrating the two together.
All right, so it's a fairly straightforward integration in terms of our case, and the basic concepts I'll speak to you here and understand that they are probably vendor specific. But what we do, is first of all, through our platform, we give permission for the integration by logging in to this desired GA account for the related domain or GA account that we'll be using. So that's our own API. Go to the integration, you log in, and you set up the permission. What this does for us is it updates the universal JavaScript snippet that we use to control surveys across the domain. So this particular JavaScript has permission to read the GA tracking property ID, and for our implementations, we generally add it through either GA Tag Manager or to the footer of the site so that that particular script exists throughout the website. So the first step is fairly easy. You set up that initiation and you tag your site. Once that's done, in terms of VOC individual engagement, so you might be running 1 survey, 2 surveys, it's important that your VOC vendor can control the interactions between different engagements. For instance, you may have an on-exit survey in your cart, or you may have a random pre-post sampling for visitors early in the visit who complete it after. One thing you certainly want to be able to do is control the interactions with customers so that they're not bombarded with multiple solicitations for feedback. So in our case, that can all be managed, survey invitations and strategies and how they interact with each other in the configuration in the VOC platform. Now, once those projects are turned on and a user is invited to provide feedback, what happens is the initial event is used to identify that visitor has accepted or has interacted with a survey invitation. And once they hit the submit button, our script pushes the survey data into your GA property as additional events that now become available for reporting. Does that make sense, Ferris?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think in terms of, and you know, just from experience working with iPerceptions and getting the implementation set up, it's, you know, whether you use a Google Tag Manager or other tag management systems or just native deployment, it is pretty straightforward. There's the documentation, you know, in the support section of the site. So I'm definitely can attest to the ease of setup there.
So that's great. We've got it up. We're collecting feedback from visitors, and we're pushing the way they answer questions or their stated intention and experience now into GA as new event properties. So what this opens up for us is now the ability to address Avinash's challenges, getting at the why behind the what. So the first example I'm going to show you, you know, a behavioral flow. Now, some people like them, some people don't, but one of the reasons they don't like them is because, you know, you can't understand intent. But when you've added VOC to it, we could, for instance, put the challenge to see what do behavioral flows look like for visitors who score their experience well compared to those who score it poorly. So this is quite a straightforward process. You go into the area in GA where you would add segments, name your segments, and then by choosing the event labels that you've added via your VOC provider, you can set them up to the criteria you'd like for that segment. In the case I have on screen, what we're looking for is people who score their experience on the low end. For our scale, either very bad or fair, and it's as simple as that. We save those given those particular conditions, and then they became available in all your reports. So a really straightforward ability to add new segments now based on what customers are actually stating their experience or their intention is. So once that segment's created, let's just use a really simple example of a behavioral flow. I now can look at a behavioral flow for visitors with low satisfaction as stated by themselves, not inferred, by selecting that segment, choosing a behavioral flow report in the behavioral menu, and looking at those visitors compared to, say, another report where we would look at visitors with high satisfaction. And of course, you can add additional information as, you know, the traffic source or the technologies used or the geography to really get at the why behind the what in terms of behavioral reporting.
Absolutely, thank you, Duff. And again, just for those you know, power users in Google Analytics, you know, you're familiar with the concept of such as segmentation, and once you get a segment or an audience based on a specific response, as Duff was saying, you can look at the flow, or you can look at any sort of, whether you're looking at a goal, an outcome, or you're looking at maybe a channel in terms of where the traffic is coming from. If you have a lot of maybe dissatisfied visitors, maybe you're bringing the sort of the wrong type of traffic. So that concept of being able to segment on the types of questions and answers that iPerceptions have, I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, another good one is like conversion rates, where, the people assume that all traffic, within their shopping cart are actual purchase intenders. You could have a purpose of visit question and then filter down on only those who, per se, they're in market in the short term, and look at those conversion funnels and numbers as opposed to theoretical ones that are based on inferred behavioral intentions.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think, this is the initial value that Avinash wanted us to get at, and, it really did give more power to GA practitioners to start looking into qualified behavioral segments, qualified by customers themselves, by stated intention and experience. But, in the web analytics world, I believe VOC is still the poor cousin, and there's, I think, a reason for that. And, it's one that we've been looking at for the last 4 or 5 years as well. And that is the fact that even though I can create these behavioral segments, they are relatively small. And what I mean by that is not everybody answers a survey. So, here I am looking at census data of everybody who's been to my website, and you're going to ask me to focus in on these 1,000 who answered the survey. Well, it can really address certain immediate problems. But what about the new challenges? What about using behavior for remarketing? I want to have a more robust and bigger sample or segment or audience based on this VOC data. And that's really the challenge that we're tackling today with VOC integrations into web analytics. The general premise here is we're challenging and breaking the sample barrier by creating a strong behavioral signal that can be used to better recognize visitors who look just like those who are willing to tell you about their experience. So the example I like to use here is, a lot of behavioral analytics, let's say we assume that somebody in the shopping cart is in market. If we run research using representative surveying, we'll find that greater than 50%, usually around 58 to 60% of people will tell you they have no intention to purchase whatsoever. The other thing that we know from our forms of research that are looking at the whole population, if we ask visitors who didn't make it to the cart whether they were in market, we find another 60% of our actually target audience has come to our website but didn't hit the behavioral cue we were looking for. So what we're addressing here really is the ability to focus in on visitors who have stated their intention. Really, the problem with big data is it's missing a narrative. It's not that if you have a lot of data and you model it, that you'll get the answer. What you really need is a clear story of what to model and see if it exists elsewhere. And that's exactly what we're doing in the challenge now. We call it active recognition. And what we're doing, Ferris, is we're using the well-proven methodologies that we've developed in the last 17 years to collect representative samples of visitors willing to tell us about their experience. So a small group of visitors, we'll call them hand raisers, who are willing to tell you about their experience and their intentions. And we collect that in addition to their behavioral patterns, what they've done on the website, time on site, page scrolling, page sequencing, mouse movement, things of that nature. Now this is being modeled, and we're doing this on an ongoing basis, so you continue to collect information. And the same model that's being informed by your survey respondents will look at the behavior of people who have never answered a survey and will never answer a survey. And for those that it's able to recognize, we will label them as if they answered a survey. And we're doing this for a large portion of the site traffic as it occurs. And of course, this can be pushed back as a new event label into GA. Or if you're more sophisticated, we can push it into your DMP or other marketing systems like DoubleClicks and so on. So really, this is a huge breakthrough that exponentially increases the value of VOC beyond decision support to be able to maximize in an automated way your ability to recognize visitors more accurately. We're getting amazing results, and I'll show a few examples, but I'll stop here to see if that concept's clear for us.
Yeah, thank you, Duff. This is really, really interesting. So, you're leveraging, that representative sample, and then you're modeling, using machine learning, you're modeling that behavior and then letting the marketer know here's the segment of your population, with this sort of intent based on what we could tell, right, from the behavior of a representative sample, and then yeah.
No, go on, Ferris. Yeah.
Yeah, I said, yeah, just so that's that same concept, I guess, in Google Analytics in terms of retargeting. You can build an audience based on behavioral data, people who did not bounce and did not maybe complete a checkout funnel. I want to go and remarket to them in AdWords or in DoubleClick. And now, from what you're describing, Duff, is you can also, based on other signals, qualitative signals, we can create an audience and pass that audience to GA. That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and you'd ask yourself, like, okay, does it make a difference, right? And here's the basic logic. Everyone working in big data understands that the main challenge isn't the algorithms. Of course, you need algorithms for your types of data and the types of data models that you're building, and we're doing that for our type of data and what we're collecting. But the success of modeling is primarily controlled by the quality of data that it's fed with. There was a great program on PBS called The Human Face of Big Data, and it talked about using AI in medicine and in traffic control and in distribution, and of course in our world. And all these experts say the same thing. The key to big data is a narrative. And in the case of web analytics, the narrative can be provided by the customer themselves when they're willing to tell you of their experience and their intention. We're getting good early results. So the other question is, can you model something? That's another thing. Because you're continuing to collect information, you can verify the quality of the model against the next person who answers the survey. How would it have identified them, and what did they actually say? And so these are all steps forward in the world of modeling. And the bottom line is, what are your results? And we're seeing cost per acquisition that are cut in half, click-through rates that are 300–400%. And I mean, it's a general simple principle that if you align content to need, you'll get more engagement. And it turns out that creating a strong signal within behavior, you can incrementally improve the models you can build from behavior alone.
Well, excellent stuff. And just a quick question, is this available on web and mobile, or just web as of now?
At iPerceptions, we have a number of products where it's built in already. So depends, we have products for experience optimization that are available for both web and mobile. All new products on our behalf are coming out. We don't even make that distinction anymore. So, there's going to be different things that can be modeled. This could be used for remarketing. It could be used for real-time personalization. It could be used to decide when to engage for feedback. So we have a number of, different products, and, everything we're putting out, pretty much any new products are designed to be adaptive and reactive to device type. Great.
Thank you so much, Duff. We have about 7–8 minutes. Is there something else you want to cover, or should I jump to the Q&A?
No, I mean, just on my end, I was going to give a small example here of pushing through that enhanced sample into your AdWords to do a remarketing list, but we've already covered that, creating different segments that can be used to make audiences. On my end, my last little push is just over here on our end, Ferris, for new clients who want to get involved. We're offering, free integrations with Google Analytics, or basically a $6,000 off our enterprise platform based on, our push with you on the GA breakthrough book. And we really believe that this is, an area of great growth in the future for VOC.
No, absolutely, yeah. Thank you for making that offer to our attendees here. And again, this will be available after the webinar as well. So a couple of questions. One, thank you again, Duff. One of the question is, in terms of somebody, okay, they've listened to this webinar, they've read Avinash's books, they know the importance of voice of customer. They're new to an organization. They have the budget. So how do they get started? Obviously they have to buy the technology, but any specific recommendations on get a program established, not just sort of not just running a survey, like sort of what maybe some tips that you've seen over the years to help people really establish a successful voice of customer practice?
Yeah, well, okay. First of all, the thing is, roll out your program. So don't try and do absolutely everything at once. Set your key business objectives forward and the KPIs that you're trying to address, or the business issues that are your immediate goals. In terms of this, your VOC provider should look at their full offering, which, we have solutions where clients are, engaged in literally hundreds of different projects across the world, and we have those that run one. So the first thing is to understand that we need to roll it out incrementally. If you have a big program in mind, you're not going to want to, launch 13 different surveys, right away. So set what are your key challenges, understand the main objectives based on that. Then a good VOC provider will put you together with somebody who's an expert in writing research. I've seen the most successful clients generally often start with a tracking study if they have nothing in place. So running a reproducible representative sample with a number of key metrics aligned to their key business goals to start. This will create, first of all, acceptance within the organization, the ability to share these metrics and build momentum. One of the major benefits of when you first do VOC is it confirms assumptions and it creates surprise results to allow organizations to more quickly align and execute. So I like to start there. As you build up support internally for the quality of this information, then you start to roll in more tactical and short-term goals. So that's what I've seen as being most successful. It certainly needs to be adapted to your specific needs. And in our experience, this is where I go back to, it's not about running a survey. It's about having objective VOC expertise, and how do you implement a program in such a way that you can actually address these issues long-term, build support for VOC. What often happens in organizations is everybody starts surveying and then everyone just writes off survey results because there's so much different information coming in. Nobody has control over sampling methods or how the information was collected. So, build a foundation, and from, the support you gain from initially being able to either confirm assumptions or give surprise results, extend out into the more advanced areas I showed you today.
Right. No, excellent. So again, the tip here is get started, tackle maybe one issue, show some results, some early wins, quick wins, and then build on that success. I remember in one case, one of our customers, they insisted on seeing the raw data, and it was about a new product launch, and there's a lot of unfavorable comments, feedback about a specific aspect of the product, and some of it was not kind at all. It was a bit, maybe some of it was a bit offensive, but the idea was it was representative. I mean, it wasn't just a comment here or a comment there. But that made a big impact on sort of the messaging, enhancement to the product, and you see it when somebody puts the time and effort to plan, the collecting of the data, the sort of cleaning the data, presenting the data, and they put their efforts into it, and people do act on these results, and they do improve, the product offer or the messaging, and at the end of the day, improving the bottom line. So I've seen it in full action. One last question here. I know we want to stay on time. In the book, I have it here on the screen. Again, thank you for the contribution, Duff. There's you talked about how to get into the heads of your visitors, and we have maybe about a couple of minutes. Maybe can you just touch on this quickly and to kind of give our listeners a flavor of what you meant there?
Yeah. Well, this is what I addressed when I started off today's conversation. We call it the engagement spectrum. And what we're speaking to is the fact that the way you engage for information changes the nature of information that you will get back. So we've mapped it out over what we call individual focused feedback that's not representative. If you put like a feedback button that's persistent on your website, it actually does not collect information that's reproducible or representative of what's going on. However, it can be highly actionable at an individual customer level. So here you're looking at more one-to-one, it's more CRM based. But if you started to send that up to your executive team or your developers or your product people and say, oh, guess what, everyone thinks our product sucks, you'd be very wrong, because this is a complaint card and it's 10 to 12 times more negative than the reality. However, it can be highly useful at an individual customer level, for instance, dealing with these conversations and managing the complaint in a private channel as opposed to publicly on some social media channel. On the other end of the spectrum, you have clients that have the need to have very reproducible representative results. I'm thinking of a lot of our global clients like Ford and Dell, where they need to measure, visitors' intentions, experience across the world in different languages, in different countries. And it's extremely important that the results we're getting are not noise, which means, from month to month, they're just going all over the place. In this case, what you need is some form of random pre-post sampling. And what I mean by that is very early in the visit, you need to be upfront like a door greeter and ask your customer before the experience occurs whether they're willing to provide feedback on it. Why? Because somebody's experience itself affects their likelihood to provide feedback. And if you need to get a representative sample, you need to limit that bias as much as possible. So these are the forms of, a fully branded engagement that engages early, but when people agree, they actually don't complete it immediately. They wait to the end of their visit and complete afterwards. This is generally what's necessary for ongoing tracking studies. And then the area of huge growth, Ferris, is in what we call audience targeting. So triggering small little inline surveys that are designed to be completed immediately within the page. For instance, you add a new build your price page on an automotive site and you want to get feedback directly, 1 or 2 questions, or you have a new landing page. Now, these are different. They may still be randomly offered, but they're not pre-post. And they're good to get really quick optimization information on particular initiatives, but they're not designed to run over a long period of time.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Is that helpful, Ferris?
Yes, very helpful. Thank you so much. And we're coming to the end of the webinar. I do want to let me bring this up again, just to remind our listeners that of Duff's promotion here. We have the Google Analytics integration that's offered at $6,000 off. So make use of that offer. I do want to remind our listeners that this webinar would be recorded and will be made available on the blog, along with the other webinars we've held in the past, and also check out the new set of webinars we have lined up for the rest of the first quarter. I do want to thank you again, Duff, for participating in this webinar, of course, for contributing to the book, and for your contribution to the industry in general. Thank you again, and we'll see you at the next conference. We'll talk to you soon.
Ferris, always love working with you, and thank you so much.
All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.